It's Johann Sebastian Bach's birthday, and we're celebrating with his greatest hits. And, it's just something different. We're just going to go with something different today. And actually, this is sort of somber, as it should be, as we take some time in this particular hour. We did on Monday when Gary, actually, I did not know. So it was the first I was hearing of the passing of Chris Huber when he mentioned it on Monday. And, we've done some talking here in the building about, stories and that kind of thing. And we thought we would open up the phone lines to you, the listener. If you have a story, Chris was so involved with the community in a number of different ways. And if you ran across his path or he helped you, would certainly be welcome to call us at 1-800-357-0910 and share your experiences. We're also lucky enough to have a guy who was my boss here for a multitude of years and is back in the building for the first time in probably a couple of years.
Easily.
So Jim Horn is here. So welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Yeah, right back at you. It's like, what is it like walking in the halls? You walked in the halls of this building practically since it was built.
Yeah, actually, that's probably true. I think the building was built in 76, and I started in 78, so it was sort of still fresh and new. It had that new building smell when I started. So
what's it smell like? No, I better not.
No, I don't think we want to go there. It's occasions like this are sort of mixed emotions. On the one hand, there's a sadness of the passing of someone who was a dear friend and important in your life. On the other hand, you want to celebrate the life that person had and why they were important to you. And so you have the two different conflicting emotions. We're talking about Chris Huber, who was the general manager here from, I believe, 1984 until 1999 or maybe 2000. But Chris started here as a salesman in 1958 after being honorably discharged from the Air Force. And so he was here. 1958 was when Susquehanna, who was the owner of the radio station. By the way, there's an excellent book that was written by a former general manager here.
The guy he replaced.
Yeah, right, Phil Eberly, the 50-year history of Susquehanna Broadcasting. And it basically details how a pottery company became one of the largest and most influential radio broadcasting companies in America. And part of that success was in adopting top 40 music in 1958 on a number
this region.
Yeah, a number of Susquehanna-owned stations, including WARM in Scranton and WSBA here, and there was a couple of others, I think Toledo and Akron, Ohio, and maybe even Providence, Rhode Island at that time. But anyway, so Chris Huber starts here as a salesperson in 1958 at the cusp of that success. And at that time, WSBA, in terms of ratings, pretty much was the big player in Harrisburg and in Lancaster and in York and in Hanover. It was a huge regional station. They used to say on the air, serving Lancaster, York, and Harrisburg, and because that's what they did. Back then, it was the first station in the area to adopt. Regional? Yeah, and to adopt that top 40. The regionalization, you can still see to this day, that was pioneered on WSBA back in 1958. You can still see on Channel 8. Where they cover the Susquehanna Valley. They use that as their, it's almost like a post office, So anyway, so Chris passed away on, I guess it was Saturday night or Saturday afternoon. And he was so ingrained in the community. You mentioned that he was involved in the community. And I can't think of a major organization, nonprofit, or event that took place in the York area. Now, I started here in 1978. So from 1978 until Chris was no longer the general manager somewhere around 2000, I can't think of a single major event that took place that he either personally or the radio station or our sister station, Warm 103 at the time, was not involved in.
People would call him, or we would hear things, and he would take action. He was like, and sometimes you found out about it. A lot of times you didn't. So, but that's why he's so special to us. And he was really part of the culture here. The Appel family set that up, and I think everybody who worked here, it became ingrained into who they were.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole idea of being part of a larger community rather than just the radio station was something that Louis Appel fostered, and that Chris Huber, took the ball and ran with that. Yeah. And everyone here believed in it. I mean, you and I have spent countless hours over the years out at various events doing this, that, and the other thing to help raise money for charity, walking, running, goodness knows what.
I tell people now, and I'll have them come in with a community focus, is a small example of, where when Cumulus first came in, they got rid of that. Mm-hmm. And I told them, I said,
at their peril.
I said, I know it doesn't mean much to you, but, it is one of the ways we give back, and it's, it's ingrained in who we are. So you don't know that. I'm just telling you that. And within 6 months, I was back, and it was back on the air, and they realized that, this was a different place. This wasn't just any station in anywhere America. This had different roots, and I still talk to people, and they say, well, I can't believe you do this anymore. And it's like, we're going to do this until I'm not here anymore.
Yeah, right. So, and hopefully it'll continue beyond that. Hopefully management will have figured out that, it's part of the DNA of this radio station and this community.
Yes, and it takes people, too. I mean, I've been here for... since 1990. You've been here since 78. He was here since 58. Mm-hmm. So you can, and Gary, of course, has been here for about 20 years as well.
Right.
So you can see when they find good people, they keep.
Mm-hmm. So. Yep. And that, to me, is a hallmark of a well-run business. And yet, it's odd in today's times that seems like it's an anachronism sometimes.
Probably because it can be expensive at times. So
yes.
There is one thing that trumps all, not to
the
be...
Benjamins.
Yes, absolutely. Well, can we take a quick break here, and when we come back, can we have a couple of stories that you can relate to?
Sure.
Or however many you're comfortable telling. I wasn't sure. You did a great job in setting it up because... I guess I just assume we did talk about him earlier in this week, but you did a good setup in reframing it for everybody who may not know who Chris is and why he's to us.
News Talk 93.9 and 910 WSBA.
It is 8:18 WSBA Morning News with Gary Sutton. Gary doing color commentary, something that he's not usually hired to do. He usually does the broadcasts of the PIAA State Basketball Championships at the Giant Center in Hershey tonight. He'll be doing that today and tomorrow, and he'll be back on Monday. But in this last hour of the program here today, we're just marking the passing of Chris Huber, general manager here for many years, community player, if you will, involved. And here to help us remember is Jim Horn, the program director of WSBA for several decades. And do I make you feel old enough? But you are in the building for the first time in a couple of years. And, that's got to feel I remember being in first grade in a school in Rhode Island, and we moved all over the place. And then when my dad went to Vietnam, we moved back, and he says, would you like to go to that first school? And I thought, I don't even remember half the schools I've been in. So when we walked into that building, I recognized the smell immediately. It was like a flood of memories. So I'm just wondering, you walk in here, do you have those kind of moments as we talk about Chris here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just walking into the building and seeing Carol at the front desk,
Yes.
So many pleasant memories come back. I mean, I had one of the most amazing careers I think that anybody could have. It way exceeded any expectation I had. And Chris was a large portion of that because I worked with and for. He was my boss for a lot of those years, and the beginning 1978 to 1984, he was just somebody I worked with. He was the sales manager here at that time. And when I was here for a job interview in 1978, I met with Chris, and we immediately hit it off. I mean, you can just tell sometimes,
Right.
when you
He
meet
was
somebody.
very gregarious.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, very outgoing, very positive guy most of the time, and as situations demanded, and from that point on, he was very instrumental in showing me. I said in a public statement one time about how one of the things that Chris taught me was how the world really works, and it's not always how you think it should work, and it's not always how you wish it would work, and it's not always how it seems it works, but he taught me how it really works. And a lot of that goes to, and you hear this a lot when people talk about politics today, a lot of it goes to, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine, how things get done, and how achievements occur, and how progress is made. And individuals don't always act alone, but individuals can shape the course of events. And Chris was one of those guys who was, by his force of personality, the amount of time and effort he put into things, and the creativity that he had.
Yes, very creative.
Yeah. Chris was one of those guys who, as a single human being, was able to move the direction of events.
Yeah, I wondered about expectations, too, did he? Because that's one of the things that I find is that people have different expectations about how things work and what can be accomplished. And usually, I find if you can manage the expectations, the rest of it works its way out.
Right. Chris was good at managing expectations, but one of the things that I thought Chris was best at was raising the level of expectations and then exceeding them. Let me give you a quick example. Yeah. I believe it was 1988 when WSBA first began broadcasting Baltimore Orioles games. And Chris and Tom Ranker and I went to Baltimore, and we were there to sign contracts and become an affiliate with the Orioles and meet with the team management, and there was a lot going on.
And that would have been a big deal.
It was a huge deal. And at that meeting, now we have expectations that we're going to be broadcasting Orioles games. Okay, great. And we have expectations that there's going to be an audience reaction to that and that there's going to be a financial benefit to the radio station because of that affiliation. Otherwise, why do it?
Right.
So we get there, but those were Chris's expectations too, as they were Tom and mine. But Chris had a higher level of expectation. Chris wanted to be an integral part of the Orioles, which Tom and I were thinking affiliate. Great.
Right.
Chris was
beyond
thinking,
that.
way beyond that. And as a result of that meeting and in changing the expectations, if you'll recall back then, WSBA ended up with its letters on the scoreboard at the ballpark. Well, no affiliate in the history of Major League Baseball had ever done that. And that was part and parcel of what Chris wanted to do, because he thought that sent a message that we were a major player and we were not just another affiliate. And that gets back to what you were talking about earlier, about the DNA of this radio station and the York community being so in sync with one another.
He is, his funeral is set for Saturday at St. Mary's. I don't know if it's public or private. But,
I believe it's public, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure
on
now.
the radio.
Before we head into the break, Louisa just had to call. She had to get in here. Louisa, are you still there?
Oh, yes, I'm waiting.
Yeah, so you know this Jim Horn? You know this guy?
I know. I recognize his voice right there when he came on. I won a slogan for silver way back. I don't know what year, but I have the letter around here somewhere. I won a silver dollar because we send in slogans for silver when they used to have contests. So my slogan was, WSBA is a daily rule when getting my children off to school. Ed Lincoln gives me the time without any fuss and helps my children catch the school bus.
Well, congratulations. You still have that dollar?
I was so proud. Yeah, they sent me an actual silver dollar. I still have it.
Yeah,
I still have the letter somewhere, too. I'll find it sometime, and I'm rooting for stuff.
Well, that's great, Louisa.
Yeah, so your voice hasn't changed in all them years.
Oh, neither is yours.
Oh, just a little bit.
Thanks.
Okay, have a good day.
Thank you, Louisa.
Thank you, Louisa. It's great to hear you.
Enjoy. WSB.
Chris Huber. I remember his name, too.
Excellent. We thank you for the call.